Hey everybody, this is my week 4 check-in for my WNBA in-season challenge that I've given to myself that all of you are invited to join in on if you want in on some of this fun. This week, before I kind of dive into the details, this week I want to talk a little bit about how I track my macros all the time, but especially when I'm traveling and I don't have the opportunity to really know exactly what I'm eating. So that's always kind of a big question mark, is how do you track that stuff? Talk about some of the food that I've enjoyed this week, cover some sleep things, and just take a look at planning into the week ahead, along with looking at how I actually did this week. So if we get into, let's just look at my week for starters, and let's go into the tracking tab here. So here you can see what our week actually was like. And so starting last week to the tail end of week 3, through week 4, we had a really dense period of games. So we had back-to-back, we had a lot of travel. We went up to New York again for, second time in about 10 days and went down to Atlanta. So it was definitely a tough week from a travel and just game density standpoint. One of the things that's probably most challenging for me on these types of weeks is the length of days. So a game day for me is long no matter what, but on the road it's actually even longer than at home. And so my days will start on the road probably about 6 o'clock. If we're at home, I get up about 5 a.m. So let's say on the road I'm up at 6 a.m., get started with my day, and we'll go all the way through the end of the game, have to head to the airport afterwards to fly either to the next city or fly home, which means that my day, if we're flying home, probably isn't ending until about 1:30 or 2 a.m., depending on where we're coming from. So it just makes for a really long day. And I already know going into those weeks that my sleep is probably going to get sacrificed. It's going to be a challenge for me to keep up with my training. And so planning ahead is just the biggest thing there. From a food perspective as well, if you're having how many hour day is that? Well, however many hours that is, from 6 a.m. to 1:30 a.m., that's a long time to be awake and to try to spread calories throughout evenly. So it's really easy to kind of prey into being exhausted towards the tail end of the day, and you can eat to sort of stay awake, to have something to do. You can think you're hungry because, frankly, you'd normally be sleeping during that time. So those are just kind of areas that for me are pitfalls. And so I have to be, again, always just thinking ahead. What's my day like today? How am I probably going to feel after the game? And how am I going to time my meals? Another one of the challenges that we face is being surrounded by food all the time. And the food is really there for the players who need lots of calories. The food helps them recover, and it's tasty. But for me, who is, not playing basketball games, I don't necessarily need all of those calories. It's not that I can't have some of those things that are provided. I just don't want to have all of it. And so I do want to just really be aware of what I've already eaten in the day, especially on those long days, because I think it's just really easy to inadvertently overindulge or overconsume something that you really didn't even, plan to or want that much. So anyhow, that was the week there as far as travel goes. And then fortunately, in looking ahead to week 5, we only have one trip, and it's just a quick one. So I'm really excited about that week because I'll get to be at home, and just kind of have sort of a regular week and a regular sleep and training schedule. One thing that I wanted to kind of point out here, again, because I've been, finally started tracking my weight. So if we look there, you see I have a weigh-in that was pretty low. And there's a couple things going on here. I'm highlighting this because you just never want to get too wrapped up in one or two weigh-ins. There's lots of fluctuations for lots of reasons. So let's see if we can figure out what this one was all about. Let's see. On the day before, I weighed in at 159.6, and then the next day in New York, on an unknown scale, I weighed in 2 pounds lighter, which was surprising. So chances are the scale has something to do with that. It's obviously a little bit different than the scale that I use at home, I would venture to guess. But then if we look at kind of calories, there's not anything super weird going on there between those couple days. If I keep looking over here to this other column, this is the sodium column. And for the most part, if you look at these other weeks, I probably get about 3,000 milligrams of sodium per day. And leading up to that light weigh-in was several days of just averaging less. So we've got 1,500, 2,000, 1,200. And then same day of that weigh-in was really low, which is unusual. So that could probably have also impacted having a lighter weigh-in. Then I didn't get to weigh myself for a couple days and went back up 159.5, 160 there on the last day. So is what it is. And we'll just look at the progress tracking sheet to see if I'm actually trending down or not with all that variability. You can see over here that I got in regular training rhythm, which was amazing because that was coming on the tail end of having to cram 2 weeks of lifts into, like 9 days, which was tough. And if we look over here at the sleep, like I was saying before, it's just been kind of a challenge. Again, with like the later flights and the later games, my body's really kind of hardwired to wake up by 7 a.m. at the latest. It's tough for me to get sleep past 7 a.m. because I'm really accustomed to waking up at like 5:30 and getting my day started then. So if we look in at what this week's had for me, I did get one night with 8.5 hours, but if you look at my deep sleep, I only did about 45 minutes, which, I'm sorry, that's less than a half hour. That's less than 30 minutes of deep sleep, which that's really a bummer because I remember that day and I woke up and just wasn't feeling as refreshed and recovered as I would have hoped given how much actual sleep time I got. But then you've got these other days where it's a little under 6 or a little under 7, but I'm getting more deep sleep. Those days, as I've said before, I tend to feel a little bit better there, and that's why I'm started tracking my deep sleep. Soreness hasn't been bad. Sort of at the end of those 2 crammed in training session weeks, I started to get a little bit sore, but I haven't really been very sore through this whole process, so I think that's encouraging because I think my conditioning to do this style high volume lifting is improving, so I'm getting more out of my training sessions, which is really great. All right, so let's take a look at my progress sheet. And again, this is where, these daily numbers that you're tracking, it's just where you can kind of take a step back and see, how did I actually do? So if we look at weekly average weight here, so week 3 I was at 161.1, week 4 I was at 159.2. Okay, so that's great. That's down a couple pounds, down 1.9 pounds to be exact. That's a little bit of a quick rate of loss, but I have a feeling that since I've gotten my daily calories to even out, I didn't have any like big 2,500 calorie day followed by like a 1,200 calorie day like I did last week. So I think that's helping just kind of even my actual body water that I'm holding. Not sure how much of that is actual weight loss yet. So again, just trends we're watching over time, but moving in the right direction because I am trying to lose in total body weight about, 8, 9, 10 pounds. So that's great. If we look at waist measurement, and this is one that is commonly looked at because when the scale is fluctuating all over the place, you can look at your waist and that may be a little bit more reliable in some cases. So last week, week 3, 28.49 inches was the average. This week, my average was 28 on the dot. So went down about a ½ inch on the waist. So again, another great sign that things are moving in the right direction. Now, let's talk about my actual calories. So, as I just said a minute ago, this last week, this is week 3, I had a lot of up and down fluctuations. But this week, week 4, much more even, just within about a 100-calorie variance from day to day. And I really was working hard to try to hit what I needed to. But again, with traveling and having to estimate everything, it can be tough. So if we talk about the estimates, I have a pretty good sense of how much, like, any given thing that I might be eating actually correlates to in terms of weight or ounces, grams. Is it a cup? Is it a half cup? I do have a really good sense of that because I've been doing this for a long time. So I can really eyeball it pretty well. But for those of you, if you're trying to get started with this, it can be tough. And if you look at, there's a company called Precision Nutrition. They have some really good content out and have for, like 15, 20 years that helps you learn what different portions of food are. But for protein, like any protein, one serving is roughly a deck of cards, and that's about 4 ounces. So anyhow, back to this, I do think I do a pretty good job of estimating these portion sizes. And if I weren't, then where would I get the feedback to know that? Well, over time, if I'm underestimating what I'm eating, we would see that my weight wasn't changing. On the other hand, if I'm underestimating what I'm actually eating, then we'll see that my weight is dropping too quickly. So either way, if you're doing your best to estimate each portion of what you're eating, you'll get that feedback eventually, and then you can make little tweaks of like, okay, I need this, but plus a little more. And it's honestly as simple as that. It truly, truly is. If you're doing that consistently over time, you'll see the changes and you'll see just how to make tweaks. You don't actually have to weigh everything. So there was one day, just as an example, I'll get up a picture of this absolutely amazing breakfast sandwich I had. But it was my kids' last day of school, and I took them out to breakfast. I had a everything bagel with I asked them to just put light cream cheese on it because I don't like a ton, and some smoked salmon. The bagel was enormous, and they gave it to me in 2 halves with a lot of salmon on either side. And I probably should have just eaten half of it because it was just like super filling, but it was really good. So I decided to eat both. And ultimately, I have no idea how much of anything I ate for certain. So I estimated. It was a large bagel. So in the app that I use to actually track my nutrition, which is an app called Carbon, I found, just a portion size that was related to like a large bagel. And, I think that was like 300 calories and 56 grams of carbs, something like that. So I just went on the larger side because that was what I ate. I again estimated the amount of cream cheese that was on there. It wasn't a ton. They did do it light as I asked, but because the bagel was so freaking big, there was still quite a bit on there in all. So I estimated that, and then additionally I estimated, I think, about 6 ounces of the smoked salmon. They were really generous with that portion size. And so that's just an example of how I tracked that particular meal. And that's how you can do it really wherever you are. Sometimes it gets really tedious if there's a lot of ingredients, but if you just do the best you can, again, over time, and that's what this is all about, consistency over time, you'll be able to see if you are overestimating, underestimating, or if you think you're kind of hitting it right on. And outside of the weight and waist changes, the other thing that I'm looking at to give me that feedback is how my training is going. What changes am I noticing? What progress am I making? That sort of thing. So if we go over here to just actual compliance, this week my weekly calorie average was 1704, and so I've made some nice drops here. I haven't done this in a while, so it took me, as you can see, like 2 weeks to sort of figure it out, and then by week 3 I was much more in line with where I needed to be. And then this week, week 4, I didn't have those weird fluctuations of an oddly high calorie day followed by a low calorie day. I was really even across the board, which I was happy about. That's kind of a goal of mine, although I think you can honestly do it either way if you want to, but to be, more sustainable, the evenness is best. My calorie compliance was 96% of what I set my goal at. My protein compliance was 104%. I was finally able to get over the 12,000 step goal that I set for myself, so that was great. I'm again just kind of getting in the habit of finding those moments where I can make those walks a priority. And then if we look over here to this sort of new category, 2 new categories that I added, we've got total weekly tonnage, so 102,000 pounds, and weekly active energy expenditure, 6,083 calories. This I'm just taking directly from my watch. Again, you can make lots and lots of strong arguments about, is it accurate? Is it reliable? Is it valid? I don't know. Okay, probably not. But to me, it's reliable. I don't see it having big fluctuations day to day. So is it actually valid? Is it really 6,000 calories? I don't know. But compared to the 5,800 calories the week before, I trust that I burned, 200 more calories. I do trust that. I do believe it's reliable in that way, not necessarily accurate, and there is a difference. But this is good enough for me, and something that I want to keep track of, just kind of how much am I moving each day. Now on the tonnage, the way that I'm calculating this is just from the app that I use for my training plan. And as I've offered and will continue to offer, if you want to hop in and join me on this training, I'll have the link below. You can find the link all over the place on my Instagram. You're welcome to join in. It's the exact program that I'm doing. It is not easy, but it is going to get you some results, I think. And so, whoops, there's a bug. Anyways, it just calculates all that tonnage for me, so that's a really easy thing to enter. So overall, pretty happy with this week. And, I'm not sure I want to tweak much, so let's go ahead and check over on the weekly targets tab. So we've got week 5 coming up, and yeah, I already made this decision. I'm going to leave everything exactly the same. So calories are the same, and you can see from the first 3 weeks, last week I dropped at about 50 per day. So I'm going to keep it there and keep my step goal at the 12,000. See if I can get there again. So to just take a look ahead, kind of the final step once I set those goals, now I need to just go back to my schedule and see, is anything funky going on this upcoming week? So we are in week 5. We only have 2 games, which I was already saying is fantastic, and only 1 game is away. So it doesn't really look like I have a whole heck of a lot to plan around. So my day should be my week should be pretty straightforward and smooth. I think that's it for me. Oh, one other thing that I think I'm going to start doing that's appropriate. I think I'm going to start doing some progress pictures. My main goal is just muscle development in my legs, so I'll track that, and because I can definitely, I'm feeling that I'm getting stronger. There's some changes that I can see, and sort of I don't know, I'm kind of feeling a little bit. You can kind of feel I guess when your muscles start to get just a little bit more filled with blood all the time, a little bit more of a pump. So I'll see if I can start capturing and documenting that, because I think it'll be cool to see from now through, the next 3 months or so. All right, so that's it for my check-in. Really happy with how things are going. Please, if you have any questions, pop them in the comments. You're welcome to reach out to me on Instagram as well. And if you want to join in on the challenge, it's absolutely free. I've got my exact plan up there for you guys to join in on.